Welcome. I'm Brian Fannin, one of the staff actuaries for the Casualty Actuarial Society with an emphasis on research. I want to welcome everyone to this web exclusive for actuarial review. With me is Caesar Balona, one of the co-winners of the 2022 inaugural Hacktuary competition. Caesar, welcome.
Thank you, Brian.
For our viewers, can you tell us a little bit about who you are, where you're from, what you do, a little bit of background about yourself, please?
Sure. So I'm from Johannesburg, South Africa, so right on the bottom of the globe. And I started out studying as an actuary. I was in short-term insurance consulting, but I was always had an interest in programming and computer science. So I always felt myself leaning towards the data science and web app development side of things. And then that led me to eventually head up the data science team at a small consultancy in South Africa called QED Actuaries and Consultants. So up until the end of last year, I was heading that up. And then I've taken basically a sabbatical now, and I'm in between roles. But essentially, my career progress is actuary, bring in some computer science and data science and app development, because that's what I think is fun.
Okay, and speaking of fun and app development, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen so that everyone can get a look at what you came up with last summer, or winter for you, I suppose. I'm going to find that window. Here it is, and we're going to open up on the GitHub page, but about which more in a moment. But this is the app. It can be found by anyone at riskyrouter.com. Tell me a little bit about what this app does and how someone can use it.
Okay, so the app came from an idea I had. I was reading about delivery companies that essentially they prioritize their deliveries, or they plan their delivery routes by prioritizing left-hand turns. At least in where you drive on the left-hand side, that means you don't cross oncoming traffic and you spend less time sitting at traffic lights. So I thought that's a really great idea to optimize and reduce accident risk. What if we could take it a little bit further and combine that with what we do in insurance pricing, where we look at the frequency and severity of accidents. So essentially what the map does, on the left-hand side, you've got a map, which should be familiar if you ever handled Google Maps. You can set your start location and your end location, and it will plot a route for you. But then on the right-hand side, what it will give is some information about the frequency of vehicle accidents on this route. So we can see, for example, based on the weather, weekday, and time of day, that there's one vehicle involved in an accident on this route for every 12 million vehicles or so, okay. Which means there's a return period of accidents of about 56 to 57 days. And then we can get a little bit more, we can tweak a little bit more, so you can put in what your vehicle you have, if you're driving a car or a motorbike, your relative speed, and then just get some information on the riskiness of the route, hence the name Risky Router.
Okay, so I can already see that if I switch from car to motorbike, my risk of serious injury or fatality goes up rather meaningfully.
Yes, yeah. So I mean, a lot of it is as you would expect, yeah.
So I love the genesis of this as prioritizing left-hand turns, and I think you had said that there'd be left-hand turns when people drive on the left-hand side of the road, yes?
All right. Yes, yeah.
Here in the United States, where we drive on the right-hand side of the road, I love making right-hand turns. I don't like making left-hand turns, exactly. And so this is right up my alley, pun semi-intended. I'm going to take a quick moment. I'll ask something. Is it possible for me to enter? Do I need the actual street address, or will it search?
It should autocomplete or search based on what you type in.
I'm going to see, because I can't remember the precise address of the CAS in Arlington. We'll see if it comes up with this. Okay, yeah, I didn't think that it would. It might be 4350 Fairfax. In Arlington, Virginia. I get it.
So the one. So you'll see the limitation is very close to Seattle, basically.
Okay,
yes.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, there I'm a little bit less familiar. We've got a good friend who lives somewhere in West Seattle. I don't remember her address, and I'm not going to dox her on this call. So we'll put a pin in that. Yeah. So from a consumer standpoint, particularly someone who lives in Greater Seattle, and certainly illustratively anywhere, this gives us a sense of relative risk. For instance, if I'm on a motorbike and I've been drinking, I might not like my chances. So from the consumer perspective, this is a great way to remind us of some of the generalities of driving safety, but some of the specifics with regard to route and how many left-hand turns I might be making. What are you hoping that an actuary will take away from an app like this?
So I'm hoping it's at the most basic level, just a demonstration of what's possible. So I think
Okay.
traditionally, maybe we just apply the techniques we use to insurance pricing and insurance, but I think if we take it a bit wider, we can see a lot more applications. So for example, you could take this idea and extend it, take it to a delivery company or a courier company and apply it to their whole fleet of vehicles and then optimize their deliveries throughout the week to minimize overall risk. So I'm just hoping it demonstrates wider applications of the traditional work, and also the power of taking the traditional work and surfacing it in a much more user-friendly and interactive way, like a web app.
Very good, very good. And that might be a nice segue into this other tab which I have open, which I know that you're familiar with, and I'm hoping that actuaries will be quite familiar with this website as well. This is all of the code that you used to build this app. You have very generously given us this code to share with the world at large. It is hosted on the CAS GitHub organizational site. GitHub is, I think, the leading cloud-based collaborative platform for coding. So if anyone wants to see how you created this, all of the code is here, both for the analysis that you did, the kind of statistical analysis that you've done to come up with those probabilities of risk, but also all of the interactivity, the mapping, and the user interface elements. Is GitHub and open source coding something that you've done previously, and if so, for how long?
Yeah, so open source is very important to me, and GitHub, like you said, is just the main place to put all your code if you want to surface it to the most people. So open source, I started with open source pretty much. If you go into Python and programming and using data science, you will immediately start interacting with open source software, and you'll immediately feel very happy and glad that there's a lot of open source software that you can benefit from, because what people create and put out there for free for you to use, it just makes your life way better, and it just gives you so much power. So immediately I felt, open source is something I want to do, and I want to be able to share what I'm doing. So this is not the first open source project that I put out there. So with the CAS, we also launched the Triangle reserving package, I think in 2021. We launched that, which uses chain ladder reserving and a bit of a machine learning combined to create a really good approach to getting a initial reserving basis. So these are kind of the first two projects that I've really put a lot of time and effort into, and I'm hoping and planning on a few more in future.
Very good. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing the screen with just one final shout out both to riskyrouter.com and also github.com/CASAct. Triangle, that's one of the projects that you've done, the first one that you've done for us, which is available. And Risky Router is down here. So if anyone wants to understand how that code works, and my favorite, contribute to the code, improve it, extend it, then this is the place to do that. So you're quite a proficient programmer. I noted that in Risky Router, there is one or two languages that I've never even heard of that you used in the development of the app. How did you acquire all of these skills?
Yeah, so not through traditional actuarial training. So the actuary kind of brings the statistical side, but then acquiring all the programming skills and all these other packages that I use to build the app really just came out of me having an idea and saying, well, I'd love to implement this idea. How do I do it? And then researching the technologies that go into that idea, and then looking up tutorials, looking up textbooks, trying my hand at them, and eventually building something out. So with the Risky Router app, I knew I needed a routing engine. So I went and searched what are routing engines I can use, read up on them, and learned to use them. Or to develop a web interface, looked how do people develop their web interfaces, and it's using JavaScript and a backend engine, and you just dig into each of those. It's very time consuming and laborious, but it's worth it.
Okay. And forgive the kind of the niche geeky question here. You are using JavaScript for the front end. You're not using Shiny as the platform, correct?
No, so the front end is built using a front end framework that's based on JavaScript. It's called Svelte, which is not
Right.
unsimilar to React or Angular, which are used in
Okay.
some of the larger websites like Facebook.
Okay. And Svelte, that was the one that I didn't recognize. So
Yeah,
this is a dialect of JavaScript?
that's right. Yeah. So it's just
Okay.
a library on top of JavaScript. Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Well, I hope that I can find some time to look at it. I've dabbled in JavaScript, but have to confess that I've not had either enough time or motivation to get over that hurdle. So this is a way to inspire me to work a little bit harder. So you've got a massive technological achievement here. Uh, do you find that actuaries have any barriers in carrying out this kind of work, or just technology generally? We are high quality statisticians, we're data experts, but in terms of bringing technology to bear to solve problems, are there any barriers that you see to implementing that in our day-to-day work?
Yeah, I think, and the problem I've alluded to already in how I acquired the skills, it's really just time.
Mm.
So the actuarial curriculum is extremely demanding. So I've had the pleasure of training actuaries in some of these technologies, and it gets to the point that there's just not enough time for them to manage their workflow, their studies, their family lives, and pick up these skills, which in themselves are a whole other profession that you need to bring in. So really the major barrier I see for individual actuaries picking up the skills is getting the time to do it. So ideally, if employers can provide some of that time to pick it up, then that'll help that. Or we can just broaden actuarial teams to bring in some of those more of those technologies and those skills from other individuals, and kind of work together to create an app like this.
Okay. Certainly, time constraints are something I think we can all relate to. A question that may be a little bit tough, and answer it as best you can. I'm putting you on the spot here. Given these time constraints, what are perhaps the two or three outside of the actuarial curriculum technologies that you would suggest that actuaries may consider prioritizing?
So definitely the first one would be a programming language. So it would be between R and Python. I think R would be great for an easier foray into the statistical work, but I find Python is a lot more broad in its application. So you can link together a lot of systems a lot more efficiently. So definitely a programming language like Python would be number one for actuaries to pick up. And then beyond that, it would be diving into systems, understanding your system and how it works. So command prompt, or Bash if you're using Linux or Mac. And then just understanding how your system works and how you can link different parts of it together using a programming language. And then finally, I would say once you know Python or R, digging into some of the major libraries that help you complete your work. So for example, in Python, the chain ladder reserving library, or if you're into the machine learning data science side of things, something like scikit-learn or TensorFlow for deep learning. So programming language primarily, and then digging deeper into applying them onto your system.
Okay, that sounds great. So we know how we're going to spend our extra hours on the weekend if we're not up to speed on those technologies. Final question for you. One that I enjoy asking, particularly in a technical context: jobs or was?
Yeah, I enjoyed thinking about this. So I align myself more with was in terms of enjoying the technical work and thinking that really the technical work is the backbone of a lot of the technology that we use. But I see that jobs is certainly necessary for the marketing and the leadership and surfacing those ideas to the greater audience. So I view myself as a was, but you need to find yourself a jobs if you are a was, and if you are a jobs, find yourself a was, and then the team will be a lot more powerful that way.
That makes a great deal of sense to me. Caesar, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your participation in this competition. And congratulations on being a co-recipient of the award for 2022. With that, I will bid you good day.
Thank you, and thank you to the CAS for the competition and the opportunity.